Hello everybody, and welcome back to a project that's been brewing for some time, and this is by way of a wind-up video. It's now complete. This is the Jungmeister fencing design, an old-fashioned kit from Belgium, I believe. Very much a balsa bashers type of model. I've really enjoyed this build, a bit of a challenge, partly because of the unique structure of the wings and the way the front of the fuselage was put together. And I've just this morning finished off putting thread lock onto the final bolts that will remain in place. All the rigging has now been done. I'm really pleased that that's out of the way. I'm happy with it. And what I'm going to demonstrate here, if I can set things up, is how the model can be de-rigged and obviously by implication rigged fairly quickly, because I was concerned that this would become a nightmare at the field and I would spend 40 minutes or more just putting it together, and I wasn't prepared to do that, to the point that I would have just sold the model rather than face that. It's not my sort of idea of a day out. It's got a spinner on, which is because I haven't got a lock nut that will allow, will actually thread all the way on. It's the one for the spinner. I have actually seen one Jungmeister with a spinner, and it does make life a lot easier in terms of starting the motor with a starter. So it might stay on, we'll see. So what I'll do is I'll try and rig the stand up with the phone in place, and I'll talk you through how this is de-rigged. I think it involves 8 bolts in total, but more of that in a second. So here we have, I've moved the model into a little bit more space. The first thing to perhaps mention is the tools that I'm going to use. There's a stub-nosed screwdriver, not a stub-nosed, stub handle, short handle. It's just a lot easier to use when you're undoing bolts, I find, than a full length one. This is for removing the lower bolts on the wing. There's a Allen key here, slightly larger one and a smaller one, and that'll do the whole job. So let's move in closer and I'll show you the reverse procedure for taking the wings off. The last job to actually put the wings together is to attach these 2 lower bracing wires onto the lower frame. So obviously this is the last job to do. It will be one of the first ones to do once the wings are on. So I have to remove this first of all, which I'm doing now. And a little bit of advice, if you do, obviously when you're doing this at the field, you're almost certainly going to drop one of these bolts into the grass or onto the surface. And the thing you need then is a magnet. If you take a magnet to the field with you, you can rub it across the surface and pick the thing up quickly. Ask me how I know that? Well, I found out the hard way with it. Without a magnet, even if you see where it drops, if the bolt disappears into the grass, you've got little hope of finding it. On a mat, on a bit of plastic, but more importantly, I find the most useful tool is a magnet that you can just brush over the grass and pick up the offending piece that you've dropped. You'd also be surprised at how many other bits and pieces you find of fellow club members using that, and how many friends you make because you've got a magnet there. So I'll take it off on the other side and then I'll show you the next stage. That's the upper wires slackened off from the fuselage. The next stage is to actually unattach the top wing, and there are 4 slightly heavier bolts used to do that, and they go through the rigging wires and through the cabine and into T-nuts which are embedded in the wing. So I'll take one out. There you go. In fact, if you screw that back through there, it'll safely keep them together. Actually, I put everything in a small box. I'll take the others out and then we're into the final straight, so to speak. So that's the top wing actually unattached. All the rigging wires freed up, and what I'm going to do now is take elastic band, put that onto them just to keep them tidy, or tidier shall we say. And do that both sides, and then we're on for the next manoeuvre, which is the one which I think some people have found interesting, and that is, this is now free, but the wings are still connected via the struts. And what I'm going to do is tip the plane up onto its nose and undo the lower wing. I've undone some of the screws which hold the undercarriage in place. That's loose now and it'll flop forward, but before I do that I'm going to begin to undo the wing, the lower wing, in fact both of the wings now, because they're connected. And the trick is to slide over the tail, and to facilitate that I've disconnected the rudder. These were the plastic bolts that came with the kit. I may replace these for some with a hex nut in because they're easier to actually screw in. This has a habit of falling off the screw. You can hear it's quite a squeaky one, this one. Drop that down. Of course, the wing's still being held in place at the moment because of the two rotating dowels into the fuselage. So if I pull that out, the front of the undercarriage remains in place, and now this whole thing will lift off. And there we go, wings removed. Now obviously they're stored bolted together, but that's an extra 8 bolts that I would have to take out on the field, and it's not easy doing it if you've ever tried to put it together. These are Loctited, well, not thread locked in place, and that's the procedure done. I think that's much less painful than if we'd been putting it together on the field. I know that biplanes by their very nature involve a bit more work, but that now is manageable and it'll fit into the car like that. So in reverse, it's disconnect the rudder, slide the set of wings over the top, put the blue bolts in, reconnect the undercarriage, put the 4 bolts into the top of the cabine, and of course you've got 4 rigging wires at that point, and then 2 to the bottom of the fuselage, job done. I think that's much more manageable than the pain of trying to put it together at the field. Somebody asked me some time ago when I was tearing, if I'd had hair, tearing my hair out, wondering what to do, how I'd eventually solved it, and asked to see it. Well, I haven't done it in the correct order, but I think by doing it in reverse you should get an idea. I hope that's useful to people, and it might give you some options when it comes to transporting fairly bulky biplanes. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Please give the video a thumbs up. Take care, get flying or get creative. Bye now.